I'm Denise Jackson with East Greenhouse, and we're just so glad you're joining us today to visit. I'm with Camila, and we're going to just talk a little bit about how God has continually reminded her that He's there, because He is, because He's always good, because He's always on our side, even when things feel like they're just crashing around us. He doesn't let us go. And so we just want we want y'all to be encouraged by that fact today. And so here's Camila.
Thank you, Denise. I'm glad to be here.
Well, lately they've really gone through some hard things. The last 5 years have been really kind of hard.
So the past 5 years have been revealing to us. I've grown up, I was grown up Catholic, but never was really, was a very lukewarm relationship with God. I did all the sacraments and stuff, but I never actually had a relationship with God, right? And I've grown up with some hard things in my life. I lost my dad when I was a teenager. It was really, really rough period.
And you lost him to cancer.
I lost him to cancer.
And he fought it for a long time.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's just, and you're an only child.
I am.
And so you, your mom, and your dad was your family.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was really, really tough losing him, and he was the most loving dad a girl could ever wish for.
That's awesome.
But it was really hard, and even then, I didn't see it quite at the time, but God was providing. He was providing every single second. Reflecting back on those days, either through the people that came with me to help me fight through stuff, or it was resources and books and stuff that I kind of searched. I got a dog finally. My whole life we've been like preaching to my mom that we really want a dog. My dad and I, she never allowed. By the time he passed, she did allow me to have a dog.
And what was that dog's name?
It was Phoebe.
Phoebe.
She was the sweetest little Yorkshire.
And she was just what you needed when
she
you
was
just
exactly
needed somebody
what I
to
needed.
cry into that little softy hair.
Like a purpose, somebody to take care of.
Yeah.
And we were really good friends, and I would take her everywhere in my purse. I was just like walking around. It was the most special relationship I had, and just what I needed at that time. Unfortunately, she passed away too young. Yeah. And it was hard for me as well, losing.
Just feeling kind of like a repeat.
Exactly.
What you went through with your daddy.
Yeah, just somebody I just didn't have any control over that. It was just really sad and really sudden. She was really young. Not long after that, like I met this really great man who kind of walked me through this whole journey, and later became my husband.
Yay.
So it was really, really amazing, and we had really great 15-20 years together where things were going perfectly. You know, like our careers were going really well.
And you're both in IT, so those are high stress careers. I lived that too, so I know.
Yeah, we're
everything's
both
changing all the time.
Exactly. You know, very high expectations, you know, just aiming high, and we were like traveling all around and just really climbing the ladder, you know, and just really...
And enjoying your lives. And where was God in that? Tell me about that relationship during that time.
It was still lukewarm for me, right? Like I honestly, I was, again, Catholic. I would pray at night, but those prayers were really mechanical. Like it was never a relationship. There was, when we got married in the Catholic church, and it was really beautiful church. At that time, I felt like God was calling us into a deeper relationship. You know, the priest, we kind of became friends with them, and there was like some young group at the church that we became friends, but we had our own stuff career wise, and we were traveling for work, and we just didn't really dedicate. God called us at that time, but I don't think we listened,
but the good thing is, like, He doesn't stop calling.
He never stopped trying. No. He never stopped trying. So he kept going. I'm like, okay, you're not going to listen this time, but you're going to listen soon enough. We later moved to the U.S. And again, we had a really good life. Everything was going really well, and until more or less COVID time, when things started to really become challenging. Finally, I was in a good place to have another dog, which was a golden retriever that I really wanted to have. I've always been very perfectionist. Always have to be in control. I always have to have a plan. and things need to go exactly as I'm planning. You know, I'm
Yeah.
always going to plan for a worst case scenario, and I'm like, that's what I've done with Oliver, this dog. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure he doesn't have any genetic diseases, you know, that he comes from a really good lineage. So I did all the research that you could possibly imagine, like crazy, to make sure he would come from a good place and that he would have a normal life. Because I hadn't had that with my prior dog. And I'm like, I am going to be, because I didn't do any of that at that time. So I'm like, no, I thought that I'm like, if I did that right now, things would go my way.
Outcome,
exactly. I would have a different outcome. So I did what I had to do. I did all the research. So 3 days after we got the dog, I found I was pregnant with my...
So it was a good surprise at that moment. Yay, I'm pregnant finally.
We didn't think we were going to get pregnant that fast.
Oh, I see. It was fast.
It was like fast.
That is great.
But we didn't think so. We thought usually, I guess, gotta keep trying, but it wasn't the case. It was really fast. So I guess it was a little bit of surprise in that way, but we were... You
were ready.
We were ready and we wanted, right? So
that's like, I just want to spend a little bit of time on that control because like, really, I know you and you are so competent in what you do. And like, you've done that with everything since then that came up. If there was a challenge, you do the research, you figure it out. We can talk about that if you want to later. But like, if anybody could control the situation, you have to be one of the rock stars that could control the situation. And yet we can't. Yeah. And there's two sides here, right? There's Satan who wants to control us, or there's God that gives us the choice to let him step in and lead us and guide us. And he does it so gently, but we have those two choices, but we have to come to in ourselves, realize that, right?
Yeah.
And so you had done all that you could think of with your dog to make sure it was going to be perfectly Oliver, so he would be perfectly fine for many years.
Yeah. And it turned out it wasn't the case. He was only 5 years old when he was diagnosed with bone cancer. It was devastating because he was like my first child, you know, so loving, and the relationship with that dog was so special.
And you went through this whole amputating his shoulder down, and that just killed you, just having to watch him. But I love the story of how right before Sophia was born, right, he jumped up on you, and he never did that. But then he put his paw and his little face.
His face. So he never jumped on our sofa. We would never allow him to do it. He never actually tried to do it either. But I was 9 months pregnant with both my daughters, and those were the only 2 times he jumped on the sofa. We were watching TV. Spontaneously, he just jumped on it, rested his face, you know, on my belly, and a few days after they were born. And he did that twice with both of my daughters in exactly the same way, as if like he knew they were coming. Yeah.
So so you saved his life, and then after you saved his life, he was there loving on those girls, and so he was meant to be there a little longer for that purpose, right?
Yeah.
So it's so hard when we lose anybody. But you know what I feel like is important for us to remember? We had them for a time. We won't have anybody forever. They won't have us forever because we are going someplace else. And it's not a bad thing to do, but we feel like if we could just control it, we could be here. We could make sure that never hurts us or leaves us empty again. So, I mean, I think that's like, I'm talking about it a lot because I know I went through wanting to control everything and found out I had no control. And you have gone through that, and we are both strong, pretty sufficient women, and I want other women to hear that because it's something that we all feel like we need to do because of the world we grew up in. We don't want to be weak. We don't want to let our guard down, but and really I think in the world we don't need to, but if we trust God with our lives, we have a sure foundation, and that's really what we're hoping for. It's this sure foundation that no matter what we go through, he'll stay by us and he will comfort us and he will give us the love that that animal gave you, that your dad gave you, that my brother gave me, that we lost for a time, but he pours that love back into us and stands us up again.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And there's so much lessons through all of that. Like you were
Mhm.
mentioning, we wouldn't have experienced his love and his joy, you know.
And the girls loved him.
And the girls loved him. And like I think one of the most vivid memories I have was like the day he came back from the surgery where he amputated this whole like shoulder. He had nothing in his front
Yeah.
leg. There was nothing else. It was the most heartbreaking thing for me to see. But for him, like the first time that we took him out to go potty, you know, and he realized he didn't have his front limb anymore. He was just, you know, he was joyful. He was still happy. He was still like wandering around.
Let us learn that, Father, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and kind of with what he had, he was just being joyful.
Yeah.
And that was such a great lesson for me. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at you. I'm suffering so much because of you, and you're the one who has, you know, now is completely amputated, and you were just like acting as if nothing had happened.
And choosing that joy,
Choosing
and
the joy.
life while he had it.
Exactly, choosing what you have with what you have.
Yes.
Right at that time.
So
And I
he
was
taught you
wow.
like a lot of good things. God gave him a little time to teach you those things.
He did.
And then he did die. Not too long after that, the cancer came back. After you'd done everything you could. Oh my gosh.
Everything.
You had him in experimental treatment. You did everything. There wasn't anything else you could have done.
There was nothing. I mean, that's the one thing I'm like, there's nothing I could have done, but it was always me trying to get control, right? Like over the situation. I'm going to try everything to save this dog. He meant the world to me. So yeah, we took him to this experiment, like UC Davis, just trying to really get it, all the new stuff, and develop a vaccine out of his own cancer. It was just like crazy stuff. He was fine until suddenly it was just very sudden. He wasn't anymore.
It wasn't.
And it was really tough.
It
was
is
really
tough.
tough. And that was just one
so then,
of all the things
that was
happened.
like, But then a few months ago, they had another layoff, and Gustavo got laid off.
That's right.
And